All right, good day, and thanks for joining me. My name is Scott McCutcheon. I am the founder of Sovereign Studios, and sometimes I make video games. Today, I wanted to talk about a game that I don't really play anymore, but that is still near and dear to my heart, and that game is Final Fantasy XI. I think I first started playing Final Fantasy XI probably more than 20 years ago. It was probably 2005-ish, around then. I started playing as a character named Sovereign. And if you played FFXI around that time, on the Diabolo server, you might remember me as the leader of the Ethereal Link Shell. We were a pretty big in-game H&M LS back then on Diabolos. One of the things that always fascinated me about Final Fantasy XI was just how reliant it was on third-party tooling. FFXI, as a game that was originally designed for the PlayStation 2, it is just littered with limitations. And if you compare it to modern games, and over the years, a number of third-party tools have cropped up and been developed to kind of like augment and improve the FFXI experience. These tools have always sort of lived in like a legal gray area, with Square Enix basically tolerating them as long as they don't provide unfair advantages. I think because Square is probably very aware of the limitations of their game. And so they're more than happy to let the community kind of add polish where necessary. I've never been a huge fan of like private servers. I know there's some of those going around for Final Fantasy XI. I've always preferred to play on the official servers. When I think about the third-party tools that I can use without getting banned from the official servers, right? That pretty much boils down to the Windower project. Which, if you're an FFXI player, you're almost certainly aware of, and the various model viewers, right? Tools that allow you to actually just view the in-game models while you're outside of game, so you can view the models and the art and the animations and stuff like that. The state of model viewers in 2026, though, for Final Fantasy XI is less than stellar. Most of the work that has been done on model viewers was done a decade or more ago. Altana View or the Galka map viewer, stuff like that. None of it is documented or open sourced. And the tools that were developed for it just never got maintained. They're not super easy to find on the internet anymore. Some of them don't even work on modern operating systems. So you'd have to load it in Windows 7 or something in order for it to work. That's sort of where I come in with this Vanalytics app that you're looking at here. So Vanalytics is, basically a web-based companion app for Final Fantasy XI. There's nothing to download, nothing to install, no account required. It's completely open source. You'll find it on GitHub. All you really have to do with this app is tell it where to find your FFXI installation so that it can read the DAT files from your local machine, and it'll do the rest in the web viewer. I started working on this app after being hit by a wave of nostalgia, right? Like, I no longer played FFXI, but I wanted a way to kind of relive some of those moments without the heavy commitment of resubscribing, reinstalling the game, and actually trying to play it, right? For me, that would have, I am aware of the heavy commitment required to play this game. And so for me, I don't have the amount of time to invest in this sort of thing anymore. So for me, it would have just been browsing my inventory to kind of like reminisce about the times I obtained a certain piece of gear or a certain weapon, or maybe it would be flying through a zone to, remember something that happened at a specific location. A model viewer actually would have satiated, a lot of my nostalgia, but it wouldn't have been browsing my inventory, right? And there's not a single model viewer on the planet ever that has allowed you to just fly through the zones in Final Fantasy XI. So I went about building one. So that's what this is, Vanalytics. So Vanalytics, contraction of Vana'dyl and analytics, becomes Vanalytics. So we get analytics for the adventurer. You don't, like I said, you don't have to log in. In order for any of this stuff to actually work, right? You're going to have to tell your browser where to go find your Final Fantasy XI installation. So you've downloaded Final Fantasy XI, the official version. You've installed it on your machine. It exists on disk on your machine. We haven't yet connected our FFXI install, so let's hit browse. You'll see I've already kind of done this. So I've got my install here, and this is the directory you want, the one that has all the ROM directories. This is where all your DAT files live for Final Fantasy XI. So just select this folder. This is probably a poor example because it says there's no model available. You can find a piece that I know has a model. Like the Valhalla breastplate. There's one that I know has a model, right? Not every piece of armor in game will have a model, or maybe I haven't found them all yet in the DAT files. NPCs are kind of the same, so you can start going through here and digging through to view the NPC models, right? So here's an Aeron from Altair, and the animations do work, so you can scroll through all the different various animations that this NPC might have. Kind of fun to go through and look at some of these. Here's Promethea. Here's Hades. Ooh, creepy, right? The zone viewer thing, I'm really proud of. I think this is a new sort of thing for most model viewers. Where this was never possible to just go through and scroll through a zone like this. You'll notice that you can also search for spawns. So if I want to go find, like, say, where Absolute Virtue spawns, there he is, right there. You'll notice there's a little skylight, so you can kind of identify where he's going to be. This should be pretty helpful for, helping you, go through and find, other monsters. All right, there's all the spawns in Lethene Plateau. There's Slumbering Samwell, right? And so we can take ourselves right to him and be like, oh, he's over by the lake. This is where you will need an account. So the app gets a little more complex when it comes to the integration with the game, right? So I've added in a windower add-on where you can synchronize your character up to the app. One of the reasons that this actually came from this feature in FFXI right? So if you go look at a player, and I'm just gonna go find my old character for the time being. That's this guy. You guys, if you're a Final Fantasy XI player, you might be familiar with this. You're obviously familiar with FFXI It's a community staple at this point, but there was a time when you might remember that the profile that you're looking at right now, this used to work, right? And this used to actually synchronize to the game, and it would count all your job levels, your craft levels, your mission progress. It would show your equipment and list all your relics that you've got, and track your inventory and stuff. And this actually started being super useful. But over the years, this broke. So for whatever reason, a bunch of reasons, really, historical reasons, this broke. I think somebody, and I want to say it was Stanislav, the guy who ended up creating Discord, I think, was an FFXI player. He created Discord for Final Fantasy XI, and then he created something called Guildwork, which synchronized your profile through an add-on. But that ended up dying. That broke eventually and stopped working. So your profile in FFXI this is dead. Doesn't work. So I always really loved this because this allowed me to kind of keep tabs on my character when I was outside a game. I could go back through and kind of browse my inventory and get that nostalgia hit, without actually having to sign into the game. So I wanted to recreate this, so I did. So it's in Vanalytics. So this is where you require an account now. So if you sign in, right now I'm only supporting OAuth via Google and Microsoft accounts. There are no local accounts. I'm not going to add local accounts or create some sort of password email architecture infrastructure to handle local accounts. So sign in with your Google account. It's fine. I've added SAML single sign-on, which is supposed to work. I'm surprised it didn't. There it goes. Sign me in. All right, so I am signed in. Once you're signed in, you can register your characters through a Windower add-on. So if you come here to the setup guide, this will be the instructions for how to download and install the Windower add-on, as well as synchronize your character to it. So here's all the commands that are available in the Windower add-on, as well as just some more information about how this works. So go ahead and download the add-on. You can just click the button there. You'll see it downloads. You'll want to go ahead and unzip that. And then you'll get a folder like this that has these Lua files in it. Go ahead and just take this folder and copy it over into your Final Fantasy Windower add-ons folder. So you'll see it just goes here. So this is your Vanalytics add-on. So now that this is installed in Windower, you can go load it in game and start using it. So the trick with that is now that you're in game, you could do something like Lua load Vanalytics, if you could spell it right. Vanalytics. All right. This will tell you that the add-on loaded successfully, but that you haven't configured your API key. So this is why you need an account. You need an API key so you can talk to the Vanalytics application. It comes pre-configured to talk to my production instance at vanalytics.sovereigns.com. You will notice, like I said, this app is open source, so you can self-host and run Vanalytics yourself. It's just a container, nothing special. If you're familiar with how to do self-hosting of your own container apps, then you can figure this out. You'll find all the information about how to do it on my GitHub page here. So Vanalytics, you'll find the README here describing how you can basically do the Docker compose up and spin it up locally. You can figure out how to deploy it yourself if you want to run this app for your link shell. So you guys can have a self-hosted instance. Otherwise, you can just use my production instance here at vanalytics.sovereigns.com. So the add-on, like I said, already pre-configured to talk to this instance, but you will need a API key. So you'll notice the command for setting your API key is this VA API key, and then your key. In order to get a key, you can generate that in the app. So if you come down to your profile, click on your profile down here, you'll get here. You'll notice we have a way to log out. Your FFXI installation is already connected. My default server is Siren. That's the server I'm on. And then there's a way to generate a Windower API key. So you can generate a key here. This happens once. You won't get to see it again. So make sure you copy it out or use it. Save it somewhere safe, or just know that you can revoke and regenerate these keys at any time. It's not a big deal. But when you do have it, you can come back to your game and do VA API key and your API key. So now your API key is saved, and now you could do your first sync with the server. So I've already synchronized my character with the server. So he's already done that. You'll notice that it synchronizes your character and your inventory, and all the things, I guess, that are necessary for it. So if you came back over to characters and you go look at my Sovereigns character, So you'll notice my character is here, and yeah, you know, all the animations work. There is a way where you can pick an animation you like and favorite it. Just hit the little star there, and it'll load up that way all the time. You can see all your equipment, so that's really cool. Your job levels are up here. Your crafting levels are down here. Any of the relics that you've captured, you know, are all listed here, as well as your progress on their completions. Here's your base stats, you know, and your stat breakdowns, your combat stats, and your skills, you know, for all your various things. And now here's where things start getting real interesting. First, we have inventory module. So, like I said, the add-on will synchronize your inventory, and you can start digging through here to go just look through all the things that are in your inventory if you wanted to. So that's kind of nice that you can just browse your inventory outside of game. There's a couple things that are very cool about this inventory feature. The first is anomaly detection. So you'll notice there are 18 different anomalies that were detected in my inventory, as well as a few that I've already dismissed in the past. So you'll notice that some of these are capacity anomalies, where it's just notifying me that, you know, my inventory is out. So we can just, you know, dismiss these. I'm aware of that. You'll notice that it found duplicate items. Some of these, you'll notice that, you know, some of these are going to be items that just have different augments that appear as duplicates. There's no way for me to track augments, you know, from your inventory on the item. Like I don't have that in the item database, your augments. So those are specific to you. So they just show up as duplicates. But because I know that they are duplicates and I don't really care, we can just always ignore these. You know, I don't need to worry about equipment that I'm aware that I am keeping duplicates. That's fine. Cool. So then I finally come up with 3 inventory issues, right? 3 actual inventory issues where we found duplicate fire crystals, duplicate ice crystals, wind crystals. You'll notice it identified these as duplicates because they exist in different inventory bags, right? And they aren't stacked. So in this case, you'll notice, like in the case of the fire crystal, you'll notice that there are 11 in my inventory in slot 8, and then there are 5 in the mod case, slot 22. So I've built a feature that allows me to just automatically resolve these. So we can just click resolve, and what will happen is the next time that the sync runs, it will sort my inventory. So there's actually a command for this. Via move status will show me how many pending moves there are from the app. So the app has decided that it's going to move 5 fire crystals from my case to my inventory and stack them. 4 ice crystals from the case to the inventory and stack them. And then if I wanted to actually make this move occur, we can just execute the moves. So there are some caveats to this where you need to have access to your inventory. So I suggest doing this in your Mog house where you'll have access to all the various bags. And then you need to have inventory space. You know, because the way, if you recall how Final Fantasy works, or Final Fantasy 11 works, when you move stuff between bags, you basically have to move it out of one bag into your character's inventory, and then into your character's inventory into its destination bag. So it kind of has to go through this step. So you need inventory space in order to perform the moves. But either way, that works. And then when you go to view them, now you'll see that the crystals are stacked in my inventory, and they don't exist in my mod case anywhere. So no crystals in the mod case. So inventory anomaly, automatic sorting can kind of work. There's also this sell advisor, which will basically just parse your inventory for any item that can be sold to an NPC and tell you how much you can get by NPCing the items. So in my case, there's 282 items in my inventory that can be sold to an NPC, and I can make 2.6 million gil by doing so if I wanted to. Here's some just totals about the inventory if you wanted to see category distribution or how many items you've actually got in your bags, you know, how many are rare EX versus common, and how many available slots you've got free, and then just capacity utilization down here. There's this crafting tool, which is kind of interesting. So this will basically parse your inventory and show you things that you literally have the materials to go craft right now, as well as things that you could almost craft, but maybe missing one or two materials, one or two ingredients. So that's kind of stuff. You can also just show recipes you can actually gain skill on, if you wanted to. And yeah, so that pretty much boils down the inventory features. So then we also have the macros feature. You'll notice it, like I currently have no macros in the app right now, which is true. But if I go over to the game, you'll notice I also have no macros, which is fine. Let's just go ahead and make one. I'm gonna call this flash. We're gonna create a macro for casting flash against a target. So if you aren't familiar with how Final Fantasy actually kind of works under the hood, in Final Fantasy 11, when you make a macro change like that, what happens is it saves the change you made in memory and doesn't actually write it to the DAT file on disk until you zone. So you need to zone for Final Fantasy 11 to flush its memory cache down to disk. So my Windower add-on can't read your macro stuff in memory. That's a giant security issue. So it has to wait until they're on disk. And once they're on disk, the add-on could read the DAT file and push your macro data somewhere else, in this case to Vanalytics. You know, in this case, we can just do VA macros push, and that should send one book to the server now that I've zoned and the macros got written to disk. So if you came back over to Vanalytics, you'll see in our macros where book one now has a flash macro. So pretty cool, right? Now let's say I wanted to just make edits in the app, right, and push them into the game. Like this is how I want to manage my macros. So let's just say I'm going to make one called provoke. We'll do JA provoke T. We'll save that. You'll notice that it saved it, but it didn't actually push it to the game. There's no way for my app to push anything to the game, so you kind of have to pull from the game side. So now that I've got a pending change here, you can hop back over to the game. Worth noting that I think, don't quote me on this, but I think this might be true, where if you're currently on the page that you're going to try and edit, it might fail. So you need to more or less switch books. But then you could do VA macros pull, where you'll notice that I apparently have local changes that haven't been pushed, which I don't think is true, but it basically did a hash check. And notice that my macro file is different than what's in the app, which I guess is true, but we could just force it to go ahead and pull anyway and overwrite my local DAT files with, you know, the ones from the app. And now you'll notice that provoke exists in my macro book. So that's now there, and macro synchronization function works pretty well. Onto sessions, which is pretty much the last feature that I have added. This one is going to be this one's a little harder for me to deal with personally, if only because I don't really play anymore. Sessions, what I am using this term as, sessions are basically a way for you to capture your play performance during a session, during a play session. So the idea here is that you'll be able to basically go play a game and capture your performance by basically parsing the log, and you can figure out kind of how well you've done, I guess, by doing a certain thing. So let's just say now I'm out in the field, and you know, I'm currently on Paladin Black Mage, lol. But let's just say I wanted to do well, real quick, it's been a while since I've done this, since I first did it. So if you come over to sessions, and look at the setup guide and see what we have available to us, basically VA session start, VA session stop, and then a couple other things you can deal with if you needed to manage the session. But in most cases, you don't need to worry about anything but starting and stopping. So let's do VA session start. That's just going to start a recording session for the add-on. Let's go kill this flamingo, and we'll see. You know, we'll see what comes of it. This is probably a horrible idea. It's going to take forever. Because I'm on not the best job for this right now. But see if I can get enough TP for a weapon skill here. Let's actually let's use our macros. We did flash. I don't have provoke open, but let's see if we can do some damage with something else. Well, shield bash. I aggroed a groundskeeper, so that was smart. Here we go. How about Knights of the Round? Cool. Kill the flamingo. Let's see if we can't get something a little more interesting. Atonement. Oh. It's gonna blow. 2 hull damage. All right, cool. So we could do something like VA session stop. And you'll see that basically captured 81 events over 2.5 minutes, and these got sent to Vanalytics. So came back over to the character. So cool. We have a session from Ruan Gardens for 2.5 minutes. See, I did a total of 8,654 damage. And if you come in here, now we have you know, interesting timeline. So you can see here, kind of. You know, in minute 1, I did, you know, almost 5,000 damage, no healing, and 527 damage in weapon skills. You know, and, or I should say by minute 0, right? By minute 1, by minute 2. And then, yeah, you can see the session highlights, where, yeah, I defeated a flamingo and then got milked down by it. There, you can see how many limit points I got. My average damage per second was only 58, pretty low, not great. And then, yeah, you can see my accuracy rate, my crit rate, parry rate, weapon skill damage, you know, stuff like that. So that's cool. My accuracy's really low, hilariously. I didn't get any items this time around, but your items and loot quantity will show up here, as well as any items that you lose, or you know, what your treasure hunter count might have been and stuff like that. So this is pretty cool, but hard for me to collect all the data because I don't really play like I used to. But maybe you guys can help me out with some of this stuff. So, but yeah, cool. So that's more or less what I wanted to show you guys about my Vanalytics application. Feel free to you know, make your profiles public and share them around with people. If you have any you know, if you want to go see other players that are using Vanalytics, you guys can go check them out here. Chat up with the forum if you want to report any bugs or request any feature suggestions or anything like that. And then, yeah, you guys let me know what you want to see, what you'd like to see from this as we you know, continue moving forward. And I hope you guys find this useful. And if you like it, maybe go check out my game, Ethereal Legends, on Steam. If you want to, you know, support my work any. But yeah, cool. Hope you guys like it. Check it out. Maybe post on the forum. Let me know what you think. Or leave a comment on this video. And yeah, thanks for checking it out. Hope you guys like Vanalytics.